Well, I'm impressed. After a day and a half, I've got such a nice draw in the audience. I appreciate you all coming. My name's Bill Westfall. I don't know how quickly they send these presentations out, but anybody that wants it early, if you take a picture of this, I'd be more than happy to send you an email with my presentation. Let me just say up front, I'm not part of the sales team for Actian. And the reason I say that is what I have in my slides, there's a lot of material. I'm going to skim through a lot of it. So I'll move pretty quickly, and I'll apologize for up front for that. I probably break every PowerPoint and presentation rule in the book. But my style is I've been doing professional services for 20-some years. My whole approach is to helping customers on various platforms and various technologies be successful. So I wanted to make this as feature-rich and as content-rich as possible. So I'll just say right up front that I'll move through this pretty quickly. Hopefully we get a little bit of time at the end. But again, the slides should be made available through the venue here, as well as, again, I'd be more than happy to send you, if you send me your email, I'll send you the content back right away. A little about Actian, so I'll cover who Actian is and why the heck I'm up here. What hybrid means, because you hear that term a lot. So, and I've got my little lasers, so which doesn't seem to matter. So anyway, Actian's kind of a best kept secret. A lot of people don't even know who we are. We've got quite a few number of customers all over the world. We've got a bunch of patents. We're one of the most successful customer consultancies and product companies in the world. I manage, again, the post-sales side of customer success and professional services. You can see just a very small number of the logos that we have, but there's many, many more. So a little bit about us. Actian, and I realize this is an eye chart again, I'm not reading through this. The idea here is we have a proven solution success methodology that helps customers understand how to integrate, adopt people, process, and technology to meet future platform modernizations. And we'll get into more detail there. But again, this is just some of the basic phases. Some of this is common sense, but you'd be surprised at how many large, medium, and small companies don't adopt a fairly common sense approach to understanding what they have, the as-is of their business, what the current technology infrastructure looks like, and then looking at a to-be state, working with the executives, with your partners, with your tool vendors, etc. And then finally coming back and saying, where are our gaps? How can we get to that modernized platform in the future? So again, I'm not trying to show anything more than this other than to say, when you approach looking at platform architecture modernization, there are some proven techniques to utilize to go through this process and adopt within your organization's key leadership and stakeholders. I'm absolutely surprised. This is a signage in the U.S. around hybrid automobiles. I was amazed at how similar the automobile industry and how data warehousing and data platform technology, how similar they are together. Let me explain. So if you remember the internal combustion engine, the automobile was bigger, clunkier, larger environmental footprint, right? Bigger carbon footprint. Then came along electric automobiles. They were smaller, didn't have the range. They were faster in some ways, but they couldn't carry as many people because the batteries were smaller, right? You see a lot of that in data warehousing in the cloud now. So a lot of early adopters jumped to the cloud onto some of these cloud-based data warehousing platforms. There's nothing wrong with that, but are they scalable? Then what happened in the automobile industry is the automobile scaled back and said, well, wait a minute, we need to be able to have an automobile that both supports kind of a lower carbon footprint, also takes advantage of hybrid technologies like electricity, but we're also going to incorporate some some maybe combustion engine elements, and hence hybrid, right? So now you've got a hybrid technology in the automobile industry that allows you to take advantage of some of that, the benefits of the combustion engine, but you also have the benefits of electric engines. One of the key messages in my presentation is you don't have to move everything in your environment over to the cloud overnight. There are very successful hybrid approaches you can take to leveraging technology in where it lies now, and at the same time take advantage of those cloud technologies. So I thought this was pretty reminiscent of what's happening there. Recent analysis shows these are some of the 6 major trends in analytics, right? I'm assuming everybody here has some elements of either you're a vendor, you've got some analytical tools, products that you're selling, or your companies that are looking at adopting, trying to figure out how to take advantage of analytics for business purposes. The first 3 in green, I'm not covering. There's too many vendors here that are going to cover those first 3. Hopefully you're all here to hear a little bit more about the last 3 here in blue. Increased use of cloud, adoption of hybrid operational and analytic processing, of course, the growth of distributed data processing. So I'm going to focus on those last 3. I don't want to get hung up on semantics, but I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of hype given to data networks, data in the cloud. But data in and of itself is just stupid, right? It doesn't afford you anything other than, you have the information at the back end. Really where we all need to go, what businesses, our executives, ultimately the strategic purpose of the data is to create, through analytics, intelligent use of data. Now that's very key because these platforms that we're talking about that are hybrid, you want to be able to have access to the information, whether it's in the cloud, on-premise, in a Hadoop, in Oracle, whatever those repositories are. And we'll talk about edge technologies too with the advent and the growing demands of IoT, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, which plays into this equation even more. I don't want to recap too much of the historical evolution of analytics. This shouldn't come as a surprise. Let me just build it out. Obviously, in the early days of analytics, it started pretty much just reporting on some of the data that corporations had. As you move from left to right, the data, the information became more and more sophisticated. We're probably even getting in beyond this one here where you can do more prescriptive, predictive types of analytics, right? Which are driving companies to be more successful in looking at how they can use information now. But as this bottom, for those that can't see it necessarily, this row shows is as you move from left to right, the architectural complexities become much, much harder to think through, to contend with. And the data demands increase tremendously. So 451 Research did an analysis in the first half of this year, independent of anything that we're doing. They had a sampling size of about 560 leaders, managers, executives. They asked this question up here in green. If you're colorblind, I apologize. Which of the following IT environments does your organization currently deploy data, platforms, and services? And this is how it stacked up, and hopefully you can read that. And again, I'll absolutely share these slides with anybody who wants them, and again, you can find them hopefully after the presentations. On-premise, huge percentage still on-premise. I think most of you in this room, if you're in companies, probably meet this pretty closely, if not higher. On-premise and cloud, they obviously are trying to take advantage. A lot of companies are trying to take advantage of cloud. Software as a service, hosted private cloud, obviously hosted private, plays into healthcare and a lot of GDPRS and protected data, infrastructure, nothing surprising in this stack. But then this research firm then asked, what about the next 2 years? So the orangish mustard color here represents, okay, what happens now 2 years, right? In 2 years, what are your expectations on your architecture? And this is how it fell out. You can see a marked difference in on-premise. It drops, but it doesn't go away. So every one of your companies, and those that aren't even in this room, are going to have to contend with the fact that you will always have on-premise for the foreseeable future. Does that mean those on-premise data sources and information sources are not valuable when it comes to analytics and understanding strategic needs of your business? No, not at all. But you can see that on-premise stays roughly the same. Now, the sampling size here was a little bit less. This was 517 they polled. But these are top leaders in the industry trying to decide what they're doing with their information and data needs. And you can see that it falls out, there's a slight growing need to take advantage of cloud-based technologies, which you would expect. But that's 2 years. That means that we have to start thinking about how to gain access to those on-premise data repositories, because we can't just lift and shift everything in the cloud overnight. And I have some slides on that. Data warehousing. True story, for those that know Bill Inman, one of the forefathers of data warehousing, I worked with Bill back when he was drawing stick figures on some of his Prism white papers. So I've been associated with data warehousing going back to some of the early foundations. So this was kind of the early foundations of what data warehousing, the storyline was. Pretty simple. You had the data warehouse, you had some access to it. So early generations of data warehousing promised the world, because at the time that's what the technology was. Easy to deploy, which for the most part it was, but requires the user to set up, design, deploy, and manage the environment themselves, again, because of that on-premise model. And as you look at each of these columns, scale to meet the increasing data volumes, started having some performance issues potentially. I'm sure everyone in the room would, if you're familiar with, if you've incorporated data warehousing into your own infrastructure, some of this shouldn't be surprising, right? Requires additional resources to deal with scale. And of course, data integration, you had to create some of your own integrations. Not surprising, right? I'm not trying to recap history. This is the evolving information paradigm, and again, with a highlight on information. All this data is great, but if you don't use it for strategic and business needs, then it's useless. Now look at that picture compared to what data warehousing committed to in the early years, right? This is where we're at. We have to adopt and expand the field of vision. Companies are looking at customer 360, right? Trying to understand why I buy pink shoes. I don't, but in case you wondered. Why women in the age of 32 to 36? True story with Nike. Nike was one of my customers when I worked for Snowflake. Snowflake was interested in certain age brackets and why women bought certain types of shoes. Because if they're introducing a new shoe, they wanted to find out why they would buy a certain style, a certain color, shoelaces that were pink versus blue versus whatever color. So the data usage, the information usage is becoming much, much more difficult, and you need access to all of this information. God knows we've got Hadoop out there all over the place, right? Well, there's some great information in Hadoop that you want to be able to take advantage of. AI, ML, right? Expand the access and processing choices at the edge. Again, that's the AI, the IoT, the AI and ML. Expansion of data sources, and this is key, which leads to more advanced decision making. I mean, I grew up through the technical ranks. I like being a techie, but when I'm talking to my CEO and I'm talking to executives at these other companies in the area here, Sainsbury's or Sony or Royal Bank of Scotland, they want to know what the hell that mess is going to do to help them with their business decisions and make choices for future product services, right? That has to come together to help the business make those choices. Quote from Gartner, top 10 technology trends for 2020, right? The goal of edge computing is to keep traffic processing local in order to reduce latency, right? We're not going to move all that IoT data into the cloud, right? Well, you could, but then you got a different issue of latency. Over time, the edge will create an unstructured architecture. So our repositories have to be able to support unstructured data, structured data, semi-structured, unstructured, a wide range of things and surfaces connected in a flexible mesh. You can almost think of that mesh as being somewhat of a hybrid solution. And this is coming from Gartner, that we have to be prepared next year to deal with this. Now, most of you know this. There's nothing new here. So what are the key takeaways from what I've already shown so far, right? And wordy slide, I break every rule. You can downgrade my presentation evaluation. But I wanted to have information in here that you took away that meant something, right? More information driven across a broader range of data repositories to build a full business information perspective. If we can't support our executives and the strategic goals of our corporations, then all that data is useless. Doesn't mean crap. I don't care where you put it. Leveraging a hybrid approach is a key to the evolution to the cloud. No big bang. So, in the 20-some years I've been doing this, looking at people, process, and technology, there's some basic truths, right? Specific to some of the data journey, data warehousing. Again, meaty slides. Send me an email, I'll send you all this. Strategically, what have we learned? The ultimate goal of new technology, the new shiny object. I don't care if you decide to go with a cloud-based, oh, look at this. We've got a cloud-based data warehouse in the cloud that's totally re-engineered for, on top of AWS as Azure or Google. It needs to support B2B, B2C, et cetera. I've made that point. Architecture modernization is only as good as meeting the new and improved business avenues. I made that point. Migration to the cloud should be done in a well-planned, phased approach. I'm seeing people rush, they adopt the cloud, and then they realize, well, the cost is going up. I don't have all my data in the cloud. Now what? Big bang shifts to the cloud can negate or undervalue the other data sources available. You can't move everything into the cloud, so how do you get access to the information in a kind of a consolidated manner? Staffing impacts. People are moving stuff to the cloud and they go like, oh, do I need DBAs anymore? It's a good question. Migration best practices, tips and pointers, right? All migrations of your data to the cloud will cost more and take longer than you think. If that isn't true for somebody in this room, raise your hand. Because I have helped a lot of companies adopt cloud technologies, and that is grossly underestimated. Now, I'm not talking about millions of dollars. I mean, it depends on your data. There is no silver bullet to move your custom SQL, your PL SQL. There are tools out there that everybody's going to claim that can move all of that custom code over, maybe 80, 90%, but there's a manual effort associated with some of it. Lift and shift versus re-engineering. I can tell you a number of accounts that wish they had done a re-engineering before they moved to the cloud. So again, these are not absolutes. You'll have to figure out what your companies and what your tools provide. Integration. Simple rule. The APIs, there's so much technology coming together. There's so many tools that rely on versions to be consistent that have to map together. I can't tell you how many, and I ran a support desk, how many times I had customers calling up and saying Tableau doesn't work, Looker doesn't work. And then you find out it's a simple version problem between the platform and the cloud and your tools. That seems like an obvious answer, but I guarantee you that I had more calls on that one bullet alone. So again, just some things to keep in mind. Poorly written queries on your existing platforms run a little bit faster in the cloud, but they still suck. Ensure you understand the release roadmap. There are countless examples, even in the cloud, where they do these periodic managed services, right? Oh, we'll take care of all that for you. That's why you're moving it to the cloud. But they make updates, right, that will impact you. Understand it well. because it wouldn't be the first time you've got a mission critical system in the cloud that breaks with a simple weekly type of update. Obvious truths, right? Again, staffing, I'm not going to go into all of this. I just want you guys to understand that these are some lessons learned. I've learned in some of the staffing, governance and oversight. You really need to not just have your IT department helping to oversight what you're doing with your architecture, but get the business in there. Get your vendors and your partners. This is key. Stay on top of this. There's a local media company I work with here in the UK. They had a very successful team that included executives, that included the partners, that included all the vendors in a room. They worked through it and they were able to meet some very aggressive milestones, but only because they had some excellent oversight. What is the hybrid approach? So you basically play the data where it lands, right? Where it lives. I'm not going to go through these in detail, but as this diagram shows, you've got multi-cloud. A lot of companies are taking advantage, of course, of AWS, of Azure, and Google. But you've got a lot of on-prem data, right? There are solutions that exist out there that bring that together so it's federated that you can access both cloud and on-premise. .360 view we talked a little bit about, right? Hyper-personalization. Again, all of this is only as good as the information you're able to access, because all of our companies have data that's critical for making business decisions spread all over the place. If you can move that all into the cloud and have it fully integrated and fits with a common data model that works, that's great. Not all the companies can. Busy slide, but Actian, the company I work for, and again, I'm not part of sales, guys. I don't get anything off of the product side of this. But Actian does have edge technologies tied in with a hybrid integration between on-premise and off, or in the cloud. And we've got fast query, dashboarding, etc. There are solutions out there. I'm not trying to sell you on Actian. I'm trying to tell you that there are solutions to bring this together. Again, one of my sales buddies' slides, sorry. But it does really speak to the fact that there are, the Avalanche difference. We've got a booth over here, talks to being able to compete with other cloud data warehousing platforms. But we are engineered and designed to work at hundreds of terabytes and petabytes. So if you're looking at cloud, make sure that it's scalable, and that it's scalable with concurrency and pricing. Because you can move a crap load of data into the cloud only to find out it's going to cost you more than you expect. And don't forget about the migration of getting that data over there. That cost is real and that timeline's real. Again, just highlighting the fact that Actian not being very well known, we have a bunch of integrations with all of these technologies. We've got integrations with Workday and Salesforce. We've got 200 and some connectors with Looker and Tableau. Again, there are other solutions out there. There's a lot of great vendors in the room that have point solutions for some of this too. We're probably connected to them. What does it take? I think I've reinforced some of this already. Leadership. Not just IT leadership, right? That's a mistake. You need the business in there. Small start. We're all going to the cloud eventually, but do it in baby steps, right? That stepwise fashion I talked about. Technology. Don't build for the end game. The end game's going to change. It's cloud today. It's going to be cloud plus 2 tomorrow, cloud version 3 the day after. So understand what that investment looks like now for a shorter term horizon. I was talking to somebody earlier today. They're saying like, yeah, we got a 5-year technology plan. I go, like 5 years? That's crazy, right? Things are going to change in 2. Next year they'll change. And don't give up. A lot of people think moving to the cloud is just lift and shift. It ain't. I guarantee you. Unless you have a small repository, and you can move it over, then re-engineer it as you go. And that's very likely for some of the smaller and medium-sized companies. When you get into enterprise multinationals, which I do most of my work with, it's not easy. This just highlights some of the professional services that my team's responsible for all over the world. Business solution activists. Look, I go in, I don't care about the technology under it. I want to know what your business challenges are. If you can tell me what your business challenges are, I can help build that architecture underneath it, bring in the right vendors, many of which are in this venue, to find a solution. And don't forget, a lot of your companies already have some of their own tools and products, maybe even house-grown tools. I'm helping one of our customers now. They've got 200 and some custom-built SQL/dashboard/reports, 200. And they don't want to move to the cloud because they're saying, well, I don't know what to do with those 200. Well, I could come in and I'll do a risk assessment. Let's look at it and we'll figure it out, right? And there are tools that can replace some of your 200. I'm not wedded to any one vendor in here. I want to find a solution that works. So that's the term business solution activist. Trusted advisor, overly used, but I use it too. Early optimal solutioning. Let's take it in baby steps, but let's make some immediate successes, right? Going directly to the product and services. If you're working with Actian, I'm sending my experts in. Risk reduction, right? That's what it's about. I'm here to help you guys be successful. Staffing and subject matter experts. Obvious things you would expect from a customer success team. And again, I highlight the parking lot, right? Because look, think about the synergies with the automobile industry. You have to have a hybrid, and I love this because if you're only going to the cloud, you're going to have problems with if you need that combustion engine to carry more data and more people. So I leave you with that. Again, feel free to reach out to me if you want some of this information earlier. It should be available. Again, I don't know the venue here and how soon it'll be, but I'll be more than happy to share it with you. So thank you for your attention.